And with couples, that if we don't stay focused, if we don't have touchstones, if we don't have agreements that we make with our partner, then we just gently, we're just gently veering in different directions. And if we're not careful, all of a sudden it's 5-6 weeks, 5-6 months, 5-6 years. And all of a sudden we're like far, far apart. And so this setting an intention with you and your partner for the year is a way that you're like, okay, this is us putting our hands back on the wheels and making sure we're in alignment with one another.
Hello, all, and welcome to the Relationship Renovation podcast. I'm Tarah Kerwin.
And my name is EJ Kerwin. And I think it's important for us to first of all, just acknowledge that we're doing something completely new today, right?
We are.
Yeah, this is so we've been doing the audio podcast for like three or 4 years,
2018.
Right?
So this will be the 6th year.
Yeah. So we've been doing it a long time. And for a long, long time, we talked about bringing the video in.
Yes.
And so this is our first video podcast that we've done.
Yes.
And it'll be coming out, I think January 19th is our goal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, it's different, but it's exciting. We worked really hard in getting this podcast room together, and I think our audience will enjoy both audio and now visual components of us.
Yeah, and a couple of weeks ago,
they now get to see me cry live.
Yes, exactly.
Or on camera.
Yes. They get to see me be uncomfortable and tense up occasionally.
There you go. That avoidant attachment.
Yeah. And so we talked about, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about that we sort of have this little shift too that we want to do in the podcast, and that we want to spend more time interviewing couples, talking to just couples who are in it like we are, about just how difficult it is to manage a relationship, to have a healthy, secure relationship.
I think that's important because it normalizes that couples struggle. Most couples, if not all couples, struggle at some point in their relationship. And when we see couples, they feel like they're uniquely broken, but actually that's not the case. And so we do want to provide this global community of just resilience and how we can get through difficult times, because that's pretty much the way we can build emotional safety and trust that we'll be okay no matter what.
Absolutely. And what's been amazing is in the past just few months, we've just gotten more and more couples or individuals within a couple who are sending us emails, who are asking us really, direct questions about how to manage different aspects of their relationship. We always send you back an email and we say, hey, is it okay first that we scrub out anything that would identify you as an individual? And then we've been answering those questions, and it's and then we've had people write back after they've heard that episode saying thank you so much.
I've listened to it multiple times.
Yeah. So
that is our love, our passion. So please reach out. We are here to support you and any questions and or tools, resources you might need.
So today we have a topic. It's still, it's still right after the first of the year. We oftentimes set those, New Year's resolutions. And we thought we wanted to wait a second before having this episode, because sometimes, those New Year's resolutions can kind of get swept up in the first few weeks. And so we wanted to have an episode today about how you can stay aligned with one another throughout the year. And use a tool that we've been using for many years now.
Yeah, I do think New Year's resolutions, kind of what we do is a little different. We kind of set this statement and this intention for the year, which helps us kind of have this year long, it's almost like a vision board, but internally, with a quote that's on our board in the kitchen.
Yeah. Every single year for a number of years now, in January, we generally don't do it until the new year has begun. We set a word. We pick one word that we're like,
it's like a little
hey,
statement.
Yeah, this is going to be sort of our word for the year together,
And it keeps you aligned throughout the year. It's not just like a resolution where, I'm going to work out 5 times a week, or I'm going to eat healthier, or I'm going to reduce alcohol intake. It's more of this like vision of where, like, when you're looking at the end of the year and you're looking at that word, that phrase, you're like, wow. And I can just say, since we've been doing this for 7 years, if not more, at the end of every year and then the start of the new year, I'm like, wow, that actually happened. We did that. Like, last year was our year of focus. And here we are. We have our podcast studio developed. I mean, it's been amazing.
Yeah. And focus, like, so last year, as Tarah said, like our theme was, it's a year of focus for us. And so some of it was about our business and about, we were really committed to having this video podcast. But then there was also like the focus, I think, for both of us on personal growth. I mean, I think both of us really dug in last year deeper into like, hey, this is some stuff I got to work on for myself.
Yes.
And for our relationship.
Yes, which then rolled over to our new kind of motto for the year. And this is where we want to use this podcast to help couples or individuals kind of come up and cultivate that for themselves. But this year, our motto is
Wholeness.
The year of wholeness.
And it took us a little while to get to that, right?
Which normally does not happen. A word did not settle until about a week in.
Yeah.
We kept throwing words out, and finally wholeness. And I'm sure wholeness might mean different things for you and I. But we kind of talked about it. For me, wholeness means within myself, balanced, spiritual, just very healthy, putting good things into my body, and really not using external factors in my environment to help me cope. Like, whole means I can get through anything just for me. I can use my internal emotion regulation system and it will be okay. I don't have to use my anxiety. I don't have to use wine. I don't have to use anything really. I can kind of manage it myself. And to me, that feels whole. Because throughout my life, I've had little pieces of like, I'm going to use that to make me feel better. And I'm going to do this in order to make my anxiety better. And I really want to feel pretty grounded.
Yeah.
And what does it mean for you?
Well, wholeness for me, I think, is a lot about, it kind of plays into balance a little bit too, with whether it's within, just myself as an individual or our relationship, is really like, we have all of these aspects. I have aspects of myself, whether it be, my business side or my emotional side or my physicality or fitness. It's like not focusing on one thing, but really being aware of being like well-rounded, and then in our relationship, like that we take care of having fun together, that we have family time, that we have intentional, like thoughtful time, but just that I'm constantly looking at like, are things in balance? Do I feel like whole? Like that seems just like incredibly important.
I just had this vision of like a really cool cherry pie. And like before, we've just been taking like little slices out and like, we'll eat that part. But this is like, no, we can like attack that whole thing and it'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really the first question that we really want to answer is like, why? Why have a motto? Why have intentions? Why have, a vision together?
A big thing for me, and this plays into like what we see with couples oftentimes when they come in,
right.
When they come in to work with us, is that we're really good at identifying what we don't want,
yes,
where we don't want to go, what does not feel good. And so we focus so much, especially in our relationship, about like, hey, stop doing that.
Right.
And by setting a positive intention, you're basically saying like, hey, now we know where we're going together, and I think that is just not, I know that that's just not our natural instinct in relationship.
It also means to me that you're having that discussion of where you want to go, because it's not just one person saying, hey, I think this year we should da, da, da. It's having a very thoughtful discussion. And I feel like that's very connecting in itself. But the biggest thing to remember is having to reconnect and remind each other, right? That's why we have ours on it's not a whiteboard, it's a chalkboard. We have our motto up there, and then we also have our 6 words, which we're going to do another podcast on that. But it's this gentle reminder when things are starting to go chaotic, like we're like, oh yes, okay, year of focus. Oh, this year of wholeness. What does that mean for me? And it helps you kind of have this new narrative for yourself, and then a gentle reminder to your partner.
Yeah. I mean, I think what it functions as for a relationship, when you pick things together, and in this case, it's just like a theme. It's like, well, this is going to be the ribbon that's going to keep us united throughout the year. It's like a touch point. It's like something that you've identified. Like, hey, we've made this agreement. Mm-hmm. This is something we're going to try to have our relationship, our life is going to embody this word. And then, whether it's once a week or at the end of the month, it's something that you and I can come back to and be like, wholeness. We said wholeness. Right. How has it felt like that this month?
Yeah. And again, so we're always trying to support couples in finding ways to stay connected. Because if couples aren't connected, there's a significant disalignment. And that's when couples come in, whether it's in crisis or just like they don't know what to do. And so we're always looking for tools, for ways, for interventions of staying connected and like knowing it will be okay. Even if we're going through this uncomfortable moment right now, like we're in this together. We have this whole year theme that we've developed together. So
yeah, I think that's an incredibly important point right there, is especially, one of the complex things about being in relationship is that you're dealing with 2 people, right? And that's what makes, couples counseling really challenging as well, because you're helping 2 people navigate their feelings, their emotions, their past, all of that. And we all have, I think of it like, I had this truck when I was in high school that my dad gave me after, when I turned 16, and he had got it into a collision before he gave it to me. Right. So like whenever,
damaged pickup.
Yes, it was a great little truck, a little 80 Datsun, mm-hmm. But you could not take your hands off the wheel. Like if you took your hands off the wheel, it veered to the right. And I think of myself, I think of people I work with very much in the same way, as just like, because of what's happened to us throughout our lives, we have slight misalignments. Right. And if we take our hands off the wheel, we almost imperceptibly, or with some very easy to perceive, we just veer off in a direction. And with couples, that if we don't stay focused, if we don't have touchstones, if we don't have agreements that we make with our partner, then we just gently, we're just gently veering in different directions. And if we're not careful, all of a sudden it's 5, 6 weeks, 5, 6 months, 5, 6 years. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden we're like far, far apart. And so this setting an intention with you and your partner for the year, mm-hmm. is a way that you're like, okay, this is us putting our hands back on the wheels and making sure we're in alignment with one another.
And it's not like we were talking about this every day, like, oh, this is our year of focus for 2023. We put it out into the universe. We put it out in our relationship. It was an intention. We definitely had talks about it, but it's not like something you have to talk about every day. It's kind of like the idea of like a vision board. You put it out there and there it is. And hopefully you're, taking accountability and doing the things that need to happen in order to, make whatever that is feel true for you. But it's not like, oh, we have to like have this intention and just don't let it be anxiety provoking, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and we're
going to kind of share the process of like how we do it, which I feel like is pretty like doable, realistic.
Yeah, absolutely. So Well, we talked about what if we aren't aligned? You know,
Right.
that if we're not aligned, if we don't have ways, we don't have systems, you know, we talk a lot about on the podcast that we create systems that increase the likelihood of a secure, loving attachment, right? So that if we don't have systems like that, we can sort of veer in opposite directions when intense things happen throughout the year. Maybe, you know, those are moments where we might pull apart instead of coming together by having a word together. It's going to help us stay aligned. And now let's just talk about like, okay, so here's this idea like that you might be listening to this or seeing this and saying like, yeah, I would like to set an intention with my partner for the year. You know, what would be the advice, Tara, that you give people like, hey, here's how to do this that might be the most successful?
Well, I feel like to not focus on just one thing. Like I know in the beginning, like we were starting our business. And so it felt more of like, okay, like this is going to be the year of busy. So how do we like really develop this amazing business? And then like as years progressed, I'm like, actually, you can put all of the stuff into it because it all kind of comes together. And so it feels good because when I think of wholeness, I think of our family, our blended family, our peer group, our staff, our podcast. Like it's kind of like this whole under all one umbrella. And so I guess one of my first suggestions would be making it realistic to like your generalized life.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think like probably, you know, in the context of you're listening to us present you with an idea that might be something to be useful in your relationship, probably it's going to be you going to your partner and saying, hey, I heard this thing. What do you think about it? Right. And I think like that is like such an incredibly important moment, right? Because oftentimes just going to our partners and being like, hey, I want to do this thing can even be the beginning of some conflict of around like, why is something wrong with us?
Yeah.
You know, and just like, so if you're the person who's going to your partner and saying like, hey, I'd like to set an intention together, just being really thoughtful about the timing.
Timing.
You know, when is it you're going to your partner? And, you know, maybe, you know, when you're cooking dinner for all the kids and doing homework and all that, that might not be the time. You know, maybe you know that it's easier to communicate to your partner through a text or, you know, instead of face to face or what works best is first just looking at like the timing of bringing this up to your partner.
And I also think there's something to be said about nature. Kind of nature brings us to like this sense of groundedness. So even like taking a walk together and just sharing like what's important for you this year, what's important for me, what's important for our family, what's important for our business, because you start to bring all that stuff in and then something will arise. And then like you said, you and I played with it. We're like, oh, the year of, we had so many different words. The year of spirituality, the year of growth, the year of expansion. But we're like, no, we've already done that. And finally, wholeness just like stuck out. But again, it took like a week. So you're just kind of playing around with it. But again, have the conversation in a place that feels like it's feeding your soul.
Yeah. So what I heard from you, Tara, is like the first two things are timing and atmosphere.
Yeah. And
I think this is true not just with this, but just like anytime you're sort of talking to your partner about something that might be, that's a little more complex than like, hey, did you feed the dogs? Is like, okay, what's the timing of talking to my partner and what's the atmosphere, right?
Yes. And then you're going to kind of get into the micro discussion. Because it's like, oh, great, year of wholeness. Awesome. Let's do it. No, what does that mean? And it's more of an individual accountability. Like for me, I was like, I'm going to start meditating more. I'm going to listen to more Tarah podcast. I'm going to reduce my amount of wine that I drink. I'm going to start running again because running for me is very therapeutic when I'm running outside listening to my country music. So I had to identify like, what does that mean for me to become more whole? And maybe to start practicing more like Buddhist psychology because I love that, reading more into it. So that's kind of what that means for me. So you have to kind of go under the microscope a little and what does that mean for me? So that way you understand.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, is like even in the discussion of figuring out what that unified word is going to be for you, it's then talking, it's just such a great way to deepen your connection with your partner, because then you can be like, oh, okay, well, this is the word that we think, yeah, that might be the word for us. And it's like, well, how would that affect you? Like, what would that look like, Tarah? And Tarah opens up and says, well, what it would mean to me is being out in nature more. And for me, it would be like, wow, it would be about like really like making sure that I'm balanced and I'm.
What does that mean for you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it means balance, and it means like paying attention to aspects of our relationship that maybe would be easy to drop off, that we're just going to try to be whole. And then it's just like, it has the potential to be a really enriching tool that you use throughout the year.
Absolutely.
So I also just think it's important to acknowledge that for some, even finding just a word could be really difficult.
Right.
And even just being aware of that, but not letting that be an obstacle to doing something that might bring the two of you together.
It has to come from an empowered place, not a powerless place. I know a lot of couples, if you are struggling in your relationship and you listen to our podcast, you might feel powerless, and kind of like just resigning to a word or an intention is not going to be helpful. So you're reaching out from a place that feels like this is like really what I need for me and for us. And maybe it's more of an individual intention for that year because, the relationship's really fractured. I'm not sure. It can look like many different ways. Just know that it's coming from this place of empowerment, not disempowerment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, because we always want to acknowledge also that couples there's a whole spectrum of places that a couple can be. And when we talk about an exercise like this, want to acknowledge that it might be an easy decision for two people to make. It might be a hard thing to come together and talk and find a unified idea. It might be easy to create it, but then there's a worry about being consistent and sticking with it. But at the end of the day, our philosophy is that anytime you're working on your relationship
and yourself,
you're gathering data, right? And you're making it a priority. So even if it's something that there's this apprehension you have and you're like, oh, I don't know, like it might be hard to pick this word, I don't want to do it. Just the mere like pushing yourself through that and saying like, you know what, I'm going to my partner. You're saying like my relationship, my personal wellness, my personal growth, our relationship wellness is worth it.
You just reminded me of something too, because you want to make it realistic. I know that a lot of people come in with these New Year's resolutions and intentions that are like, I will work out 6 times a week. I will not eat carbs. I will not drink alcohol, whatever it might be. And that feels, humans don't like that. Our brain does not like limitations on us. It's like, we had that as kids. And now look at us. We're like dealing with all of our insecure, anxious, avoided attachments. So you want to make it feel very realistic and not harsh and not rigid and not like you're in this box and you can't get out. Because my year of wholeness doesn't mean like, oh, like I can't have wine, or if I don't exercise for a week, like something bad is happening. It's just more of it's a choice. It's not like I'm putting this thing on me and I'm going to have to follow it or I'm going to fail. So I'm always recognizing it's a choice that I'm making because that's what I want from myself. That's what's going to feel good internally.
And hopefully what it will do is it will also be something that helps us support one another in our personal growth and in our relationship growth. And that's like a baseline value we have in the work we do with couples and work we do with individuals, is that our relationship can be a vehicle to our own personal growth, that by you and I choosing this word wholeness, that you can help me understand it better, that you can help me in my growing and using that as a word to help me move towards being my best self, and that I certainly want to do everything I can to help you be whole this year.
Ditto.
Yeah.
So have this conversation with your partner. If you're not in a relationship, have this conversation with yourself. And then we always love hearing, what is that word, or what is that intention? What is that statement? And then we like to share that on our podcast as well, because it just gives to the global community that we are trying to develop right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for listening. Very first video podcast.
Yeah. And, please keep sending us the ideas for episodes. Please keep questions that you have, predicaments that you or you and your partner are in. We love hearing it. If you would like to be a guest on our show sometime, tell us about what's going on and what your story is, and what you'd like to tell us about, because we'd love to have you on. Share our show. We really appreciate just growing this community of people who's dedicated to personal wellness, who's dedicated to relationship wellness. We know, we all get better together when we can be open, when we can be vulnerable, and when we can be in a growth mindset together.
And now you can say, share this YouTube video, right?
And share this YouTube video. Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Bye-bye.
Bye.